Have games become too expensive? Guys, we right now have like the Epic Edition, the Ultra Epic Veiny Edition, all these editions of WoW, right? They're going to cost you money on top of your sub. Diablo was just announced. I'm sure there's going to be an Epic and Glorious Edition and all this other shit that you can buy for Diablo as well. There's so much shit out there. The market is so saturated, and the cost of every single game keeps going up. I mean, you remember when expansions just used to be $40, you get the box and that's it? I mean, that was great. Good times. Yeah, not so much anymore. So much has changed in gaming. And yet, you know what hasn't changed? Our fucking income. That shit hasn't changed. Has gaming become too expensive? People are not paying. Let's see what the collapse of gaming prices is here from Mr. Bellular.
I've heard you, and with today's story, it seems the rest of the industry is also beginning to hear you. Now, this year started with the fear that gaming is getting more expensive. Microsoft and Nintendo pushed the ceiling to $80, an impossibly high ask, especially as everything else has got more.
You know what's crazy? You know what's not crazy, I guess, or what really funny is, I remember when things were first going digital, and like everyone thought like, oh man, that means we're going to get cheaper games, right? Because they don't have to pay for the CD and the box and all the papers and everything that used to go in, and maybe the little collector stickers and so, like all the shit that we used to get with our expansion sets. I remember I fucking missed a Pandora. I got a poster even with that shit. And then we said, okay, maybe the digital is going to be cheaper because they just literally ship it to you. It's just a download. Yeah, it turns out we were fucking wrong. Not only did digital show up, it became more expensive than the fucking box set that we used to buy, unfortunately.
Impossibly high ask, especially
yeah, that was a pipe
everything
dream.
else
Right.
has got more and more pricey. But elsewhere in the industry, something quieter is happening. And it's this. The games that you are actually buying, well, we've got the data about them. And as it turns out, they're getting cheaper. $100 for Grand Theft Auto 6. That was the rumor that kicked off this year's anxiety about game prices.
I still think that might happen.
Take-Two have been happy to downplay, if not outright refute. But with GTA now delayed, we won't know the truth until next autumn. Though we've already seen audiences reject the new price ceiling of $80. Xbox tried to put The Outer Worlds 2 at $80, presumably buying some headroom for Microsoft's lovely 30% profit margin demand. Yeah. But they quickly reversed that decision. The inference from that? They didn't see enough pre-orders. People essentially voted with their wallet. Just that, unlike real votes, the great thing about voting with your wallet is you don't need to do anything to cast your vote. It turns out audiences just wouldn't pay that price for The Outer Worlds 2. But you know what they would pay? The regular price. Because, selling at a normal price, the game did have a top 10 launch.
There you go.
The right product at $80 will sell. Mario Kart World kind of proved that. Even bundled with Switch 2 for many buyers, you don't get a 92% attach rate across 9.57 million copies without lots of people shelling out the full amount. But that's only one side of this story.
Yeah, there are. I mean, people are going to pay for what they want to pay for. That's it. Voting with your wallet's completely a real thing. And the thing is, these gaming companies, they're going to push it as high as they can until people start screaming in pain. That's it. So they want to find what is the ultimate height that they can reach that you're still willing to pay. Microsoft went a little bit too far with Outer World 2. Nintendo maybe hasn't reached their height yet. Maybe they're going to try $85 next time, right? Because we were willing to pay $80 for Mario Kart. Maybe $85 is the new trial. We'll see. The thing is, you pay with you vote with your wallet. You don't buy it, they're going to drop the price on it. And then they probably won't do it again. They've got an entire team that literally, this is all they do. And you got Greg from accounting. He works with this team. And they just try to figure out, like, what is the maximum amount they can drain from you? How much can they suck out of you, right? How much are you willing to let them suck out of you? That's the real question.
Because the reality we need to dive into today is about how off-console prices have been plummeting. But there's a not-so-funny thing hanging over all of this, and it's the simple fact that video game spending is actually falling, but subscriptions are rising. We've seen that in analyst reports.
That makes sense.
Too often, well, we're paying for subs we don't use. That's why Rocket Money is today's video sponsor, because they make it easy to get a handle on your subscriptions and get saving. And you can even get started today for free at rocketmoney.com/Bellular. Now, Rocket Money will securely and safely identify recurring charges for you. And
Nintendo asks $70 for the new Pokemon.
They've basically put the work in to
and
make
$30
that real
for the
smooth.
DLC.
So if this
Jesus.
is a chore you've been putting off, well, now's the time. They make it easy. But it's not just
That's one thing that's held down gaming prices for a long time is the free to play but pay for everything else on the back end model, right? The Fortnite style model. All of that shit has really held down like the initial cost of owning a game, right? Because they've gone with the free to play and they found that free to play actually ends up making you a lot more money because people in the long run spend way more than $80 on skins and shit like that. So that became the model for a while. And I made an entire video about this. I got the video out there with the Anduin cheering, where I believe that the subscription model is going to be the new king once again. And I think WoW is, pretty well situated for that, right? They already have the subscription model out there on their end. But I've talked about it, that I think the subscription model, just like, the ways of TV and everything else, is going to be the one that ends up winning out, or it becomes the fad right now, is that people are just going to be okay with paying subscriptions for shit and just not having to pay these large dollar amounts. And it's partially because people's incomes haven't gone up. So a lot of people are okay with paying $10 a month rather than a large $80 sum all at once in a single month. That's the truth. It's kind of sad. It's another, little play on the state of things right now, but that's really what it is I think a lot more people are okay with paying a sub rather than actually paying out a large shell of money all at once. We'll see if it ends up going that way.
that. Rocket Money will also help you with bill negotiation. You simply upload your bill and they will be able to help. For a personal example, whenever my internet went to its off-contract price, I was able to renegotiate a speed upgrade and also half my monthly bill. But here's the thing, I was overloaded with paperwork and I actually did that negotiation late. And by doing it late, I basically wasted a bunch of money. So with the likes of Rocket Money being able to help, you can actually go and make progress in those things way more easily. And that is the huge value of Rocket Money. They make it all easy. They've canceled over $500 million of subscriptions. They've helped save customers up to $740 a year when using all of their app's premium features. They've other great tools beyond what I've mentioned, so if you want to spend less and save more, which, sounds pretty good to me, you can join the over 5 million Rocket Money.
By the way, you think I'm BSing?
rocketmoney.com
a month ago.
Valular, or just by clicking the link.
Look at your boy. 1 month ago, I made a video about how I think the trend is going back to the subscription model is king again. Yeah, I just think even the way the laws are being written, that's what this video was really about. I just think the subscription model is the way things are going to go for a lot of games.
You can get started for free, play around, have some fun, save some money,
love to pat
and
myself on the back.
More features with premium, and that's rocketmoney.com/valularnews. If you've bought a game on Steam in the last 18 months, you probably paid $20 or less. In fact, you've probably been paying less since 2023 than you did from 2020. Now, what are these numbers? Well, these numbers are from the research of Simon Carlos, who runs the excellent Game Discover Co. newsletter. He tracked average and median prices for the top 50 new monthly games on Steam during that period of time, ranked by copy sold, and you're looking at the graphs now. We see a median price as low as $10, as high as $20, with averages between $16 and $20.
Damn, look how stable things were. This is the median, this is the average. Look how stable the median was prior to 2023. And then shit just went off, like COVID, I guess, or something. Things just went off here.
9. Shocker, Steam users are 3.
What am I saying? COVID was really like 2021? Was like peak COVID, wasn't it? So I guess this is like post-COVID numbers went crazy.
People who like deals. We probably didn't need this much analysis to work that out, but that's not where I'm ending. Here's where things get truly interesting. From February 2023 to October 2025, the average amount of money spent on a best-selling game went down by 2%.
Ooh.
The median, though, it went down by 20%.
Ooh.
That means that more games are selling at a lower price. And whenever Carlos took a look at the revenue earned, the trend actually held. Now, in theory, that should favor more expensive games. They generate more revenue per sale. But even there, the median dropped from $23.75 to $20.35. That's about 14% of a drop. And do bear in mind that as this has been happening, the currency has been inflating. So even as players feel like they are being pressured towards $80 games...
That's right. That's what's interesting about that whole thing is, yeah, with inflation, you would think the price would be going up just naturally. But for inflation to go up and the price, the average pay price to go down, that's like a double loss. That's like, because your money is worth less and you're spending less.
Actually buying is getting cheaper and cheaper. And what's key is that this is not showing us what has been offered to players. it's showing us what players have actually chosen. It's showing the best-selling premium games on the platform, and that does feel like a bit of a win, right? That we are seeing smaller teams with cheaper games beginning to dominate the sales space.
Yeah, he did say though that that doesn't show what's necessarily offered, but I think it kind of does. I think people just have a lot of options now. There's so many indie dev companies now popping up with all these really fun to play, smaller games that are cheaper in price, and I think a lot of people with these added options are actually doing it. You go back just a couple years, and there just weren't as many indie game options. You either bought from the big boys or you just didn't buy a game. I mean, go back to the early 2000s and 90s. Who the hell was an indie dev company making for Nintendo 64? Nobody. First of all, you can't. It's a enclosed IP thing. But still, there was nobody really making indie games out there, and now they're everywhere.
That says a lot for the value of Steam, and in a world where people would have to compare
Blizzard
the price of a full console plus a subscription for multiplayer and more expensive games, and weigh that up to a Steam machine with generally far cheaper games, well, I think it also makes the Steam machine look stronger as well. Overall, though, it's somewhat validating an argument you see all the time, right? The argument people make every time someone suggests an $80 price point, which is that you make your profit in aggregate. So make your games cheaper, and then more people will buy them. Buying 4 $20 indie games is to many people better than one $80 AAA game. Surely that's what's going on. Surely that's what everyone is doing. Well,
surely.
Ish. Let's look more into the data. Carlos gave us the perfect example. It's the September releases on Steam, where Silksong sold like gangbusters at $20, with 4.6 million copies shifted on Steam alone. That's nearly double the sales of a full-price title, like Borderlands 4. The immediate takeaway is a lower barrier to entry at the price of a couple of coffees, meaning you give yourself the widest possible audience.
Sure.
And a big game. And in theory, that also means that more people can buy more games. But it's actually not quite that simple. You see, regardless of price, the majority of game players don't actually buy that many games. Circana's Future of Games report surveyed 2,500 US players on self-reported purchase patterns. About a third of the...
Yes, someone's asking, wasn't Expedition 33 from an indie dev company? Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. It's heralded as one of the best games of the year.
Market says they buy just one game or fewer.
You get almost
a year.
every
Just
reward in game.
Two-thirds, 63%, buy fewer than 2 games a year. That is absolutely insane to me, but I suppose when I think about what my norms are, or maybe you do the same, we probably have a sampling bias, one that is in and around enthusiast gamers.
Right.
We do buy more games, but it seems that with broader audiences, that is less the case. Now, obviously, that's Circana doing a survey of 2,500 people in the US. It's good enough work, it's hypothesis-generating work, but obviously, it is just a survey. Though I
wonder where they posted this survey, though, like what website this was on, or where they found these people to survey, because that's going to skew the results, too. If you go to a heavy gaming website or something, you're only going to get people who are like intense gamers who reply to this thing about once a year, less often than once a year. God, I wonder where I'd be. I think the only game I bought this year was WoW. I think WoW Midnight was the only game I bought this year. Unless you count like Nintendo Switch games for my kids, then maybe I bought more. But I think really like the only game that I legitimately bought for myself was Midnight. Other than that, I don't think I bought a single game this year. I played some Marvel Rivals, but again, that's the thing, I didn't have to buy it. It was free to play.
That's Circana doing a survey of
It's kind of mind-blowing.
people in the US. It's good enough work, it's hypothesis-generating work, but obviously, it is just a survey. Though I would say that when you
I do have Game Pass, yes, so I did play some games off of there.
think about games overall, a lot of it is plausible. You see, a lot of people are only interested in buying this year's sport game, or this year's Call of Duty. Well, maybe not this year's Call of Duty. Maybe they bought Battlefield instead. But the majority of any product-based industry is often people who are gently engaged in it. Not people, perhaps, like you and me. But it's actually the top of the chart that complicates things here, because those people probably aren't the ones buying indie games for $20 en masse. No, that's the other 37% of people, but even that 37% is quite stratified. 22% say they buy a game every 3 months. That's 4 games a year, and that adds up with Valve's own data. Yes, Valve's own data suggests that users played only 4 games on Steam on average in 2023 and 2024. A further 10% buy a new game monthly. which is, of course,
That's
great
that's
for an
that's
industry
intense.
releasing thousands of games a year. But we need to put this in perspective.
How do you buy 12 games in a year? For sure, you're buying like games like this, like indie dev games. 12 games a year, Jesus! How do you find the time to play them all?
If you bought Silk Song and any other game in September, 2 games in 1 month, then you are only 4% of the games market. That's kind of wild. And even if we're allowed to some swing and fuzziness because a survey is only as good as the survey, the point, I think, still does stand. And of course, it's a point that we do see in a lot of other things as well. Take whaling, right? Whaling and free-to-play games, where the majority of the revenue does come from a very small strata.
Free-to-play is a completely different animal.
And when we see data like that, I think we begin to understand why all of those publishers and indie devs moved their releases away from Silksong, or of course, away from GTA 6. And in the case of the indies, it would especially be because most of those indies are at the same price point or cheaper than Silksong. So if you're releasing against Silksong, a game with massive cut-through to enthusiast audiences, if you're releasing against that, then, well, you're betting on the 4% of the market turning up.
Right.
That does actually buy multiple games a month. That doesn't really
it's
seem
not a very
like a great
safe bet.
strategy, does it? And here's the kicker. What if I told you there's another layer? You see, this chart does not distinguish between new games and already released games that are on sale. Every time someone buys a game that's been out for 6 months, they're probably not buying a new game that month to go along with it, regardless of price.
True, and they're probably buying that one that they did buy at a discount.
So, more people aren't buying games, even as prices keep trending down. Now, if that is the case, as a bunch of this data suggests, well, why then are audiences feeling like they are constantly being asked for more and more? When people are asked to pay $80 or $70 for a video game, Nintendo, Microsoft, or Sony are basically banking on a fairly simple principle, that the people who actually have money will spend it regardless of anything else that's going on. Essentially, they're betting on it being a premium product with inflexible demand. That is why marketing teams target those people. That's why those absurd collector's editions exist. Right? The people who absolutely love games and have...
109, that's cheap for a collector's edition. Shit, isn't Midnight Collector's Edition $140? I'm pretty sure it is. You can win it in the giveaway that I'm doing right now. You get yourself $140. Watch 1 hour of this shitty stream, get yourself a point to enter to the giveaway. But $140 for a Midnight Collector's Edition. That's an expansion, guys. That's just an expansion. And these expansions now don't even last 2 years. Shit.
Money. They're the people
Blizzard's
these
stroking
companies
us.
can count on. The games industry basically thrives in people who can spend without thinking about it, which has always been the case. Buying more than one $60 game at launch has been unaffordable to people for years. But the problem is the proportion of people with money to spend freely actually does appear to be shrinking. Get this.
Oh, yeah,
As
for
of
sure.
September, the top 10% of earners accounted for 50% of US retail sales.
That's insane.
In the very same year, spending in games is actually down. The 18 to 25 age group in the US is spending nearly a quarter less in games this year. And everyone, just in large, is down a couple of percent. But on the whole, most game spending is only a few points down. Now, given we're in rough economic times, that could seem like a good thing, right? Oh, the world is experiencing troubles, but games are only down in most categories by a few percent. What if I told you it's actually worse than that? You see, the difference that's been made up, right? What's made this only a few points down? Well, it's basically subscriptions making up the difference, because those have grown all year.
I would say outside of World of Warcraft, which is also technically a subscription-based game, but then you got to buy the expansions and shit. Outside of WoW, I haven't purchased a game. What the fuck was the last game I bought that wasn't on Game Pass? Because that's all I do. Like, I just do Game Pass games. If I'm bored and I don't feel like playing WoW, I'll go on my Xbox and I'll just look through the Game Pass library, download something. If I don't like it, I'll just delete it. Like, I'll play it for one day and then I'll delete it. My son does the same thing. He gets on he prefers Xbox over PlayStation. He's 8 years old because he can just go on to Game Pass and look for a game if he wants to play and then just download it and play it. I don't think I bought a game outside of Game Pass. Maybe Call of Duty, not this one, the one before it. I think I bought it. Fucking waste. I shouldn't have bought it. I think I played that thing for like a week. I should have never fucking bought it. But that was, I think, the last game I bought. Actually, it was 2 Call of Duties ago. I take that back. It wasn't even the last one. It was the one before it. That's the last game I think I bought. Outside of WoW purchases, I buy every WoW expansion, of course.
That comes from the bottom of the spending population, not the top, right? It comes from people who are seeking more and more value for their increasingly limited dollars, whilst also spending less and less on premium games. And I think that is the big tension that people are feeling. We're in a situation where game marketing and traditional big games are basically out of reach to most of the audience, more so than perhaps ever in recent memory.
Yeah.
But the companies haven't changed how they talk to players as a whole. A lot of the market has changed underneath those companies, but it's not really like it seems they've really changed their comms to match. And that is leading to people feeling ignored. It's leading to people facing demands that they cannot meet. And that's because
the crazy thing about Mario Kart 2 is it's $80, but there's a barrier to that $80. You got to buy the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. Like if my son wants to play Nintendo Switch 2, guess what? Samiccus got to go buy him if he wants to play Mario Kart, Samiccus got to go buy him a Nintendo Switch 2 for Christmas. There's that barrier to entry too, which is pretty crazy when you think about. That's how strong the Mario brand is, honestly. The Nintendo IP is just kind of on a different level.
Cannot meet. And that's because the companies that used to be targeting them are now not.
Not many games can pull that off.
They're targeting someone with more disposable income. And that's a tough change to stomach. But by contrast, the $20 games on Steam are changing. Individual indie developers are watching game prices creep lower and lower.
What is this game?
Hoping
Keeps
that they
showing.
will get enough sales to succeed because they cannot afford to price higher and risk player blowback. Now, we're not quite at the mobile game space, where developers basically can't afford to price games as premium products anymore, but we are seeing a shift
Mega
in
Bunk,
how
I've never heard of
games
it.
are sold. And what that may lead to may not be great for all of us. Because if you can't ask players for more than $25 without facing comparisons to Silksong, then you may start having to scope your development very differently indeed. And that means that some traditional games simply would be out of reach. It could also mean that we do feel more and more nickel and dimed. So, it's not all doom and gloom. It actually seems there's a lot of vibrancy in the indie scene. But what we are seeing is a changing market, changing behaviors, and a AAA sector that is struggling to keep up pace with that change. So no wonder they're out of touch. And speaking of out of touch, Bungie. That's certainly something a lot of people would say about them, and they have just had some not-so-rosy news. Basically, a big write-off at the same time that they kind of admitted they shat the bed with Destiny 2. If you want to learn about that, watch this video next.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about Bungie, but it's interesting, really, to look at it. And you think these large companies are going to lose out all these $20 games that they could be making themselves? No, I really think what they're going to do is they're going to go the way of AI. That's what's going to end up happening. They're going to go the way of AI. They're going to make smaller teams. They're going to fire more people. And they're going to use AI to develop games more cheaply so they can get into this $20 gaming scene too. That's what's going to happen. And I mean, at the end of the day, if the games are good, I guess the gamers win. The people that lose really are kind of the employees. But we'll see what ends up happening. Definitely, things reached a boiling point. Will we see the $100 Grand Theft Auto 6? Maybe. I don't think so, though. I think people have proven they don't have the stomach for it. We'll see. Overall, nice video, though, from Bellular.